All right. Hello, and welcome back to the channel. This is Jimmy. Thank you for clicking on another video. Good morning. Thank you for clicking on another video. It's a little cold out here in Bethesda. We're going to enjoy a nice little walk. For today's video, I actually started shooting this one yesterday, but it got a little bit too dark, so the footage was not usable. For today's video, I'm going to share 3 leadership lessons that I wish I learned at a younger age. I started my leadership journey just when I was turning 18, and I became a shift supervisor at a Pizza Hut that I worked at for quite a few years. And you know, when you first get promoted into those roles, at least from my perspective, and it kind of took me a while to piece this together, but when you first get promoted to those roles, I thought it was because I worked really hard. And you know, I was a delivery driver. I worked in the kitchen. I did everything that needed to be done. I always had this mindset that do the extra mile and do so with a great attitude and to demonstrate capability. And so with that said, I had the opportunity to be an assistant manager even at a Pizza Hut when I was 18. And very similar to like my second leadership role. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. You know, I put my head down and I worked hard. I knew treating people nice was a big deal, but I was also a really hard leader to work for in the beginning. And I thought it was because I was young. And sometimes I thought it was because of the color of my skin. And my challenges was met because I didn't lead with trust. I had this a little bit of air about myself then that I was 18, and I'm assuming that probably came in the way I gave direction, I gave perspective, etc. And that opened me up to all the challenges that I was going through. So the first leadership lesson that I wish I learned earlier is that you can't do it all by yourself. When I first started as a general manager at Toys R Us, I was just now starting to figure out this concept a little bit, but I was still working 60 to 70 hours because I didn't really understand another way to get all the things that was asked being done. I hadn't fully figured out prioritization, and you know, I thought delegating was leaving these big lists. When I would have a day or two off, you know, I would write these massive task lists that my team would focus on getting done. And really, instead of focusing on providing a better experience for the customer. And, you know, it was under this mindset that, you know, I didn't trust the people that I work with for some reason. And a lot of them were really, really great at their jobs. I was just inexperienced as a leader to see what needed to be done and take action with just me giving a little bit of perspective and guidance. And so that was a really valuable lesson for me. You know, even in my Pizza Hut days, you know, we had different stations. And in the beginning, I would just bounce around from every station doing a little bit of everything. And that really wasn't effective. But when I identified like my favorite cook, I worked with this guy in the kitchen named Eddie. I think to this day, it's the best pie maker that I ever had the privilege of work alongside. And he put so much care into it. And that was the first time that I really learned the effects of letting go and effective delegation and trust. And whenever I worked with Eddie, I never had to worry about the kitchen. Our customer survey scores were really high. Everything was piping hot. And he was just better at making pies than I was, which that's what he did all the time. And it was just a valuable lesson in helping me understand that you can't do everything by yourself. Leadership requires trust, and delegating is empowering your teams to get work done. And when I delegate, I try to stay in the lane of delegating to develop versus just delegating to get work done, so I can empower my teams to learn new skills, learn how to solve more complex problems. And if I'm always focused on what I can do or me trying to do it or me trying to be the best at it, it doesn't work. And that was definitely something I see a lot of young leaders struggle with today. And it makes sense because when you're initially promoted, It's easily make that correlation unless someone really takes the time and explaining to you around how they're going to see you make an impact. It's easy to associate that with being a hard worker. And a hard worker or super worker does not necessarily make a great supervisor. So that's lesson number one. Lesson number two is that people work for people, not organizations. I think this one will go without saying, but a lot of times an organization name might be what attracts people, but what keeps people around are their leaders and the people they work with. When I was a general manager at Toys R Us, I can recall, I was pretty fiery. I was 21, 22. And by this time I had learned that treating people with respect was going to get me a long way, but I still had my trigger points. And I can recall this Tuesday to where we didn't have new releases out, but I called my assistant on their off day, hoot, hollering, and yelling because I was upset that we didn't have new releases out at opening. Mind you, it only took us 30 minutes to solve this problem. But to me, it was just the premise, the fact that it wasn't done. Call this manager, and as soon as I go into my tirade, she hangs up. Call her back again, hang up again. So I am livid, definitely in my feelings. And the next day when we got a chance to work with each other, they just told me something really powerful. They said, hey, you could be the smartest, most energized, the fastest, whatever. But if you think you can talk to people anyway, you'll be doing a lot of work by yourself. And it made me shut up. It kind of stopped me in my tracks. It made me pause and reflect. This individual, was a little bit older than me, had been doing it quite a bit for a long time, was a general manager somewhere else prior to coming and join this team. And it was a really valuable lesson to make me think about how do I better communicate when I'm disappointed to get action versus tearing somebody down. And I wanted to be the leader or be a leader that people wanted to work for. And that was something that was extremely important to me, is that I be a leader that people wanted to show up for. I had a regional vice president at Toys R Us tell me that 85% of my job was people, and if I did that really well, the 15% would go a really long way. And that stuck with me, which shortly after that conversation, I ended up opening up some pretty big doors and being able to get to Cabela's, because that was something that really resonated with me, and it changed the way I lead. And I started just remembering that I talked about work all the time with my family when I got home. But I didn't want to be a leader ruining somebody's dinner, because, as a leader, you have a lot of impact on people's mental health. You have a lot of impact on people's quality of life. And if I'm the leader that has everybody leaving more anxious and stressed than they came in, it doesn't feel good. And you don't keep great talent that way. You eventually lose amazing talent. You're going to lose amazing talent anyway, because they're going to be growing and building. But if you take really good care of those folks, they're always going to send upcoming great talent your way, and you can have a really great pipeline. But you got to have a reputation of being a leader that people want to work for. And because people work for people, not organizations. And the last leadership lesson I wish I learned, good morning, how y'all doing? Yeah. The last leadership lesson I wish I learned is interest and enthusiasm is everything. People can tell when we're not bought in, when we're not convicted in what we're talking about. And, one of my superpowers has been my enthusiasm. It was a time when I was about to step down at Toys R Us. I was a supervisor and my team wasn't winning. I was used to being the top sales guy, so I used to always leading the team that was performing at the best. And when I became a supervisor, we hired some folks, and I really struggled. I really wasn't focusing on development. I was just focusing on the end result. And being a leader is so much more than delivering a result. And I learned that if I focused on the behaviors, I would do that, but I had to do so with enthusiasm. I had to believe, I had to be willing to show, don't tell, how what I was asking was going to benefit the greater team, benefit the customer, benefit the experience, etc. And if I believed in it, I should be doing it myself. And so the ability to control and funnel enthusiasm is extremely magnetic. I equate energy and enthusiasm, they're kind of in the same bucket for me, because anything that we can do enthusiastically, we do with energy. And that's going to attract people, especially people aligned with that vibration. So that is it today, folks. Quick video, 3 leadership tips I wish I learned earlier. Good morning. If you've gotten this far in the video, drop a comment. What are some things you wish you learned earlier that you know now that has been extremely helpful? And if you've not done so already, like, subscribe to the channel, and share this with somebody who this may help. This is Jimmy. I'll see y'all soon.